Hello and welcome. Seriously though, welcome to the Eclectic, I can't even speak, Life podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Renee, and you may be asking, why in the hell did you name your podcast the Eclectic Life? Because who uses the word eclectic? Because all the other names that I liked were taken, so this is what we ended up with. So, but seriously, like I feel like I am a very eclectic person. I like different types of music and art and like all kinds of weird, crazy things. So I am a very eclectic person. So I felt like, you know what, that's a good fit. And again, just the good ones were gone. So again, this is episode 1 of this podcast. So some expectations, I would say, it is my first time. So please give me some grace. I can almost guarantee you that there will be some mishaps, as you saw at the very beginning, because I am not a professional podcaster, and I can already hear myself saying too many times. So bear with me, please. Okay. So the title of this first episode is Coo Cachoo, because we live in a crazy world. We'll get into some different like specific topics. In this episode, because it's the first, I'm going to keep it pretty light and pretty quick, just to kind of get my feet wet as I get used to or learn how to do this. But anyway, Coo Cachoo. So I was listening the other day. I was listening to the radio, not the radio, but in the car listening to music because I hate the radio. But I was listening to music, and the Kanye West song "Jesus Walks" came on. Yes, that's what it's called. And there's a line at the very beginning where he says, "We're at war," and then he says, "We're at war with terrorism, racism, but most of all, we are at war with ourselves." And I was like, holy cow, I could not relate more to a lyric than I did to that one at that time. I think it was like yesterday that I listened to it. But we definitely are at war with ourselves. If anything has proven that to me, it's all of the craziness that has happened. It is January the 5th, I think, today. Yes. And as of like the first, we had all these things going on in the world. Um, there was the thing that happened in New Orleans with a guy driving his vehicle into people and killing people in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. Um, a person was pushed into the subway, underneath a subway train in New York. And this is just after, let's not forget the Cybertruck explosion. Like all of these things happened within like 24 to 48 hours of it being the new year, or right prior to the new year. And this is all after a CEO was famously, as we all know, murdered on the street at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And a woman, I believe it was a woman, was set on fire in the subway in New York. Coo Cachoo, right? Um, what is the common denominator in all of this? I'm going to tell you right now, I am not an expert. The only thing I am probably truly an expert in is having an English bulldog. And even at that, there are some days where I'm like, this dog is crazy. Who trained him? Me. Anywho, I think the common denominator is mental health. So definitely, like in the case of the CEO murder, and that was what's his name? Luigi Mangione. There was clearly some things going on there from a mental health perspective. I think also there was mentions of like physical things, back he had issues with his back and stuff like that. But definitely mental health had a role to play in that. Also too, like with the two veterans. So I don't know if anybody knows, I'm not super versed. I have not done a ton of research, but with the Cybertruck explosion and the thing that happened in New Orleans, those are two, as I understand, interconnected. The two gentlemen trained at the same base, or maybe went through a basic training. I'm not sure, but were connected in some way or shape. And I will say that from what I know and the experience that I have with my loved ones who are veterans, there is just not enough support there, especially in that realm of like mental health. So I do think that that is the common denominator. It was really crazy to me the amount of support that the Mangione kid got. I get it, right? It's twofold. So I definitely understand that the healthcare system is not what it should be. Um, is a community health, or whatever the hell it's called, Bernie Sanders wannabe health situation feasible? Probably not in the United States. But also, too, healthcare shouldn't be so expensive and so unattainable for a ton of people the way it is today. So I get it. I totally understand how folks could feel, not even empathy, I'm trying to think of the right word, but didn't really feel a lot of sympathy um, for, what was his name? Thompson, the CEO. But what I don't agree with, and was really just crazy to me, is the one amount of support that Mangione was getting for murdering somebody. Let's call it what it is. And two, the amount of like, oh my gosh, he's so handsome, and oh, like have a baby with, like, just crazy comments. Totally being deaf, to the fact that he literally just murdered this man who has two children, who was just, whether we like it or not, doing his job. That's pretty concerning to me. Another thing that I think, that closely ties in with, we're talking about mental health, and we're talking about, it's a crazy time, and there's all these things happening. But the school shootings, like, it's just a common thing, and it just happens now. I don't have children. Those of you that know me know that. It's just my dog. It was probably worse than a child, to be honest, but I don't have children, and I say this all the time. I can't imagine having a child in this day and age, because I think I would be like a helicopter mom. I would be worried about my kid all the time. My kid would be homeschooled, and they would not be allowed to like go outside, because it's crazy. Like, nobody, I don't think, right, ever expects to send their child to school and then your child does not come home because they're murdered at school. The thing that is really like crazy to me, I gotta stop saying crazy and insane so much. But anyway, is how common and how desensitized I feel that we are to these types of things. I know, like, the CEO thing was like, oh my gosh, because that's not something that's happened. But if there's a school shooting, it's like, oh, another one? Where? Okay. Like, that's incredibly sad. I think, we're very desensitized to these types of things because it's happening so often. But what's the fix, right? Like, how do you fix it? How do we fix this mental health problem that we have, right? Not just in the United States, I feel like all over, but it's definitely prevalent in the United States. I've done a little bit of research, not anything to take home or, share with anybody, but you don't share it. Fact check it. Fact check it first. I got this from like AI, Google. So anyway, and this is from 2022, but in 2022, 23.1% of Americans had some type of diagnosable, I promise I can speak, just not right now, apparently. But 23.1% of Americans had some kind of diagnosable mental, behavioral, or emotional disorder. So some type of, like mental health disorder. Um, that is a lot. 23.1. And of that, 36.2% were between the ages of 18 and 25. So exactly in line with the Mangione and that mindset of kids around his age who are praising him for doing this thing. Um, right. So what is the fix? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I will be one day, but a doctor of business, not of mental health. Um, what is the fix? I don't know if meds, okay, again, not a professional, but I know that there are some folks that definitely need to be on some form of medication, right? Like somebody who is schizophrenic, like absolutely there needs to be, they need to be on meds. Um, but somebody who's maybe slightly depressed, somebody who has gone through some crazy life experience and is trying to deal with those emotions. I don't know, man. I feel like you hear about these people who were, perfectly fine, perfectly normal, experience something, and the very first thing the doctor, like, instead of like, hey, let's put you in therapy, like, let's try these other, therapeutic ways to deal with this stress or this depression or whatever it is, here's a medication. And again, yes, I know that that ties back into like healthcare and big pharma and all of that corrupt world. Um, but I don't know. Like, I don't think in most cases, or definitely in some cases, it has done more harm than it has helped. I myself, many moons ago, went through a depression. We're getting deep here. But I had a miscarriage. I was 4 months pregnant, and it was the first time ever being pregnant. And so that was very, like, super devastating. I could not deal with the emotions. And I immediately at the hospital was in the process of miscarrying, felt like something happened in my brain where I was like, let me take all logic and sense and throw it out the window. And like, I had to have surgery because it was like, hey, if you don't have the surgery, you're going to get sick. Like, we need to remove everything. Um, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, like my baby. But the doctor had already said, like, hey, your baby is not going to make it. It's not a viable pregnancy anymore. Yada, yada, yada. The longer that you wait, the more, you're putting yourself at risk. And I just, in the moment, did not care. I did not have any logic. So I get that piece. I understand that. Um, where am I going with this? So what I'm trying to say is, as a result of that, I was put on medication. I was put on a cocktail of things. And I can tell you that probably within weeks, I was a zombie. I was definitely not myself. As a result of the medication, like I did some crazy things with my life within such a short period of time after that. That 100% was a result of the medication. So, and then I just stopped taking it cold turkey, which is probably the worst thing you should never do that. Please don't do that. But I did. And I literally woke up one day like, what in the world? Like it felt like the past however many months was just like a dream, a blur, didn't really happen, but it did. And I did do some dumb things. Um, so to say, like, I have had that experience myself, and I know that the meds do not always make things better. Sometimes you just need to deal with those emotions and the feelings and deal with that depression, anxiety, stress head on. Much easier said than done. I also absolutely understand that. I do feel though whenever I would talk to my family and those that I'm like really close with that I know actually give a shit, because there's some people that don't give a shit. They act like they do, but they don't. But when I would talk to these people who I knew like really cared and gave a shit about what I was going through and how I was feeling, that always left me feeling so much better. When I talked to somebody who would validate my feelings of just complete and utter, just, I don't even have the words, like depleted, so sad, just so depressed, whenever I got that validation to say like, hey, it's okay to feel that way. Your feelings are valid. I would feel that way, right? That always made me feel so much better just talking about it with somebody, anybody. Um, so so again, I don't know that medicine is the answer for everyone. I think it is sometimes, again, causes more harm. And unfortunately, I feel like it's like the first remedy that's always put out, from healthcare professionals. Oh, you don't feel well? Instead of like, hey, you know what? Maybe you just need to take some vitamin D. It's December. It's like, oh, here's some Lexapro or whatever. I don't know if I can get in trouble for saying that, Lexapro, but no, I've said it twice. Please don't sue me. I don't have that much money. I mean, I do, but I don't. But not like getting sued by Lexapro money. But I get Starbucks like every day. So there's that. Anywho, okay. The other thing I want to talk about is like, what do we do now also too? Because it used to be, the conversation used to be, right, like gun control. Because when these things would happen, these crazy events, it would be, right, we think of like a school shooting. It's a shooting. Um, but now, right, like what happened just the other day in Louisiana, that did not stem from a shooting. That stemmed from a person driving their vehicle into pedestrians. Or like the stuff going on in New York in the subways, right? Like a man got pushed onto the subway, a person got set on fire. Like, if somebody wants to cause harm, they will find a way. Not only that, but the Mangione kid printed his own gun with a 3D printer. Like, so even if he couldn't purchase a gun, a firearm, he's like, that's fine. I'll just make it. I mean, it's Coo Cachoo, as I said, as I mentioned. I'm currently looking for a timer because okay, 18 minutes. I don't want to do this for too long because then I will ramble. Yeah, so also too in 2022, just kind of going back to the statistics, 35.2% of those adults who had a mental illness reported that they were two or more races, and then from there it was white adults at 24.6%. I can definitely say, I'm Hispanic, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Mexican on my dad's side, Puerto Rican and Irish on my mom's side, but my Irish is like this percent, and I think the only amount I was eating hot Cheetos, I don't know, not that red. Anyway, um, hmm. So anyway, so I get it. Like, I don't know how many times I've heard, like, if somebody is struggling with these types of feelings, um, the recommendation is, I don't really want to go here, but I'm going to, is like, oh, you just need to pray, or oh, it's not, it's in your head, or oh, you're being dramatic, right? Because even today in 2025, mental health is still not, at least from what I've experienced being a Hispanic woman, is like it's kind of like you have a cold and you just need to sleep it off. It's not just, you know, you'll be okay. No, like clearly that's not the case. So I can definitely relate to, somebody who's reporting themselves as more than one race or whatever, or even, I don't know, because I'm not a white adult, I'm Hispanic, but I don't know that maybe it's the same, right? Like maybe they're running into the same types of issues where it's just not being taken seriously. And so there's this lack of want or this lack of being pushed to find help, to go to the doctor. But then if you do, they're probably just going to give you some Lexapro. Damn, I'm going to get sued for sure. Anywho, yeah, so I think that's another piece of it too, right? Is even though it's so prevalent in our country, 23% of people, of Americans in 2022, it's still not taken as seriously as if you hand somebody a cancer diagnosis. But clearly, I mean, it's just as serious because it's causing lots of disarray, craziness in our country, all over the world, all over the world. Um, so what I would say, here's my 2 cents, right? Number one, you never know. You never know what somebody is going through. I try my best to always be kind to everyone, to the point where like it's probably annoying to those that are around me, right? Like I love to say thank you so much. And literally the other day my significant other was like, "Stop saying that. Just say thank you." And I'm like, "Well, no, like I want that person to know like that I'm saying thank you so much because I mean it." Um but you never know what people are going through, right? Like be kind. Like it is not hard to be nice to somebody. Um, Number two, take care of yourself, right? Like if you recognize, notice, if you start to feel like you're going through something, first, definitely acknowledge it, right? Because that's the worst thing you can do is and I am the pot calling the kettle. Yes, pot calling the kettle black because I am the worst at this. But acknowledge it and give yourself some grace and understand that these are very hard times. Well, in some aspects. I don't want to make it seem like if we're living like on the prairie and we don't have electricity and everybody's dying from the Spanish flu, right? They're hard times in other ways. They're trying times from I think, a mental health perspective. There's so much pressure to do and be your very best. And I honestly sometimes feel like your very best or the very best is unrealistic. Okay, where was I? Number one, number two, take care of you. Number three, there is no number three, right? Number three is if you've gone through one and two, be kind, take care of yourself, and you still are in a funk, go back to the first one, right? There's so many times like where I'm having a shit day, but if I go somewhere and I'm like nice to somebody and I have like a good interaction, or if I can make somebody else feel good or make somebody else laugh, like that helps me and makes me feel better. So it's kind of like both, right? It's kind of like you're helping somebody, but then you're also helping yourself. You're welcome. That is all. I will end this here, short and sweet. This is going to be a mess because it's the first one that I've done. I'm still learning how to use the software and like where to take notes and what to do. And so I'm sure that this is a mess and I'm so sorry. I promise it'll only get better. But yeah, I'm supposed to have, I think, like a sign off, and I don't yet know what it is. You know, like Ron Burgundy was like, stay classy. So for now, I'll just say toodaloo, motherfuckers. Till the next time. Okay, bye.